Well, let me just start up with saying I started this YouTube channel a while back just to, my wife and I had gone on let's call it a vagabond trip to southern Utah. We had quite a bit of footage, and I didn't have a convenient, easy way to look at it, or to view it. So one of the guys, a young guy that we met out at Muley Point in Utah, he said, "Why don't you try YouTube?" Which I'd never thought of. When we got back home, I looked into it and everything, and actually YouTube is the easiest, most convenient way for us to watch our own videos, and that's where it started out, just where we could view our own videos, not for anybody else's. It wasn't done for other people. It was done so we could view our own stuff, and it just surprisingly, it just got more and more people are using it, which blew my mind that anybody really want to watch it. But up to, I mean, it blows my mind that we're approaching 40 subscribers, which to me is incredible. Does anybody want to watch what we put up? But anyway, one of the subscribers requested, and this is the first time I've had a request, requested that we do a video on how to make Cowboy Coffee, because he's had our Cowboy Coffee at home, and it is good. So if he thought enough of it to become a subscriber, and he thought enough to request something, I figured the least I could do is try to show you how we make Cowboy Coffee. So here it goes. You know, I literally tell everybody, and really do. I mean, I hunt for the fun of it anymore, period. I mean, I always hunted for the fun, but you were serious and all that stuff, you know. But anymore, it's fun. If it wasn't, if it wasn't fun, I wouldn't do it. But we're getting, Pierce just left a few minutes ago and jumped in his truck and took off going somewhere, and I decided that I'm just going to walk out of camp, just walk up the mountain as far as I'm going to go. I hadn't been up there in several years. First time I ever went up there, killed an 8-pointer. But anyway, so, well, I'm just going to walk up there. An easy hunt. If I want to come back, I can. Whatever. But like I said, Pierce had left. So I come down here and talk to Jack a minute, and I said, well, I got to go down here to our little toilet we got back here in the woods. Okay. So I go down there. About the time I hop up on the throne, I hear Jack's truck fire up. And I look up, and there Jack pulls out, and he just drove off into the sunset somewhere. And my rifle, my powder horn, my shooting pouch, everything is in Jack's truck. So Pierce is gone hunting, Jack's gone doing a little bit of hunting, and my muzzleloader, all the paraphernalia, has gone for a ride. I'm back here in camp. Nothing to hunt with. Just heard a shot off in the distance somewhere. I didn't dream of Jack taking off that quick. I started to go ahead and get my stuff out of his truck. I just left it in there where he picked me up yesterday, drove me out the road and let me off and come back and got me. I said, I'm just going to leave my stuff in your truck tonight. When I walked over, I started to go ahead and get it out, and I thought, no, I'll go to the bathroom first. I might should have got my stuff out of his truck first. Oh, my goodness. I think I'll go over here and make me another pot of coffee because I might be here for a while. Oh my goodness. Life is fun. All right, I gotta just put the pot on. I use 2/3 of a cup of coffee for 10 cups. So I got 10 cups of water in here, and I'm using 2 1/3 cups, so it's 2/3 of a cup of water. You want to put your coffee in, your grounds in, when the water's cold. So I just put 2/3 of a cup of coffee, 2/3 of a cup of coffee into the pot when the water's cold. And you want to let it, next thing we're going to do is let it come to a boil. But you want to watch it carefully, because as high as I've got that flame rolling there, you don't want it to come to a quick, hard boil. It'll boil over. So you want to watch your pot closely while you're waiting for it to come to a boil. You do not want it to come to a quick, hard boil, or it'll boil over and pretty much make a mess. So kind of keep an eye on it. I know at home on my electric stove, it takes 12 minutes for 10 cups of water to start to come to a boil. Out here on this flame burning, flame throwing gas stove that I've got here as a camp stove, it don't take anywhere near that long. It takes about 8 minutes. So I go ahead and set my timer. It's just to remind me that if I get busy, to hey, go check your pot. So anyway, I got this one set for 8 minutes, and we'll see how close to a boil it comes when this gets started. When it stops. We'll see. When you look down in there, you see the coffee is really getting ready to boil. It's foaming up around the edges. It's about ready to start boiling. Now, what you don't want it to do is let it come at this heat to a quick, hard boil, or it'll boil over. So, this point right here, you can push it and let it go a minute or so longer, or you can cut your heat back. Right now, it's about ready to start really boiling. So I'm going to go ahead and turn my heat down. So I've got my heat turned down now. And it's trying to come to a boil, but I'm going to not start my timer until it comes to a hard boil. I'm just trying to keep it, because I got so much water in the pot, I'm just trying to make sure it doesn't boil over. Coming right on. You see all the air bubbles, the foam on top is now starting to go down just a little bit. As all the air bubbles escape, bust, and what have you. It's about there. Most all your foam's disappearing. See all the grounds on the top? Now we're starting a hard boil. When it starts that hard boil like that right there, that's when you want to start your timer. Now you want this to go at a hard boil like this for 5 to 6 minutes. You want it to boil long enough to boil the acids out of it and to get the grounds boiled out enough to where they will sink to the bottom when you take the heat off. So a roll and boil for about 5 to 6 minutes. Now, if you go more than that, going up to 7 or 8 minutes, your coffee will get stronger, of course, but if you want it stronger than what my ratio is, which is 2/3 of a cup of coffee grounds to 10 cups of water, I would suggest you add a little bit more grounds and still only boil it for 5 to 6 minutes. The coffee it's just better than if you just try to boil every bit of flavor out of what grounds you put in there. If you try to be stingy with your grounds and just boil it longer, it just does not make as good a cup of coffee. So after experimenting around quite a bit, I find that 5 to 6 minutes is what you really want to do. 5 to 6 minutes at a hard boil like that right there. Another little thing that I want to do, where those grounds come up in all that foam, you got the grounds that are stuck to this side of your pot. You want to get those back down in. You can scrape them back down in. Take a rubber spatula or something, scrape them back down. Or after it gets good boil, you can just pull some of the water up on sides. And that'll get all the grounds off the side, back down into the pot where you want them. So that's a fairly important thing that I do. Now I've got like I said, I've set my timer because I want it to boil for 5 to 6 minutes. And I've got this one set on 5 minutes. So it's just about ready to turn the heat off. Okay. Now turn the heat off. Now that stove is hot and it'll still stay hot for a while. So I actually at this point remove the pot from whatever its heat source is and set it aside and let it cool for 2 minutes. A good solid 2 minutes. You want to give those grounds plenty of time to settle after all the boiling and the churning and all that is stopped. You want to let your ground settle for 2 minutes at least. Now at this point it's been setting for 2 minutes, cooling down. So I want to pour about 1/4 of a cup of water, cold water. Pour a little bit of it through the spout to rinse out any grounds that might be there, and then just pour the rest of it around over your cup. That's cold water. You want to let that sit for about 1 full minute. The grounds have been settling for the past 2 minutes, and then that cold water on top of it. Cold water being denser than warm water, it settles right down to the bottom, and it takes most of the rest of the grounds and what I call tar, whatever, the heavier substance, down to the bottom. Settles it out good. So 2 minutes of rest, about 1/4 of a cup of cold water, then let it rest for 1 more minute and she'll be ready to drink. And this is good coffee. Won't have any acids, any bitters. You can make it as strong as you want it and it'll still be just as smooth as glass. It's good. So now we're ready to pour a cup of coffee. Now you got the grounds down here in the bottom settled down, so you don't want to be sloshing your pot around trying to stir those grounds up. If you'll just kind of Move your pot a little bit slow. Pour it off a little bit slowly. You don't want to stir those grounds up. Now what you've got, one of the best cups of coffee you'll ever see. So now just sit back and enjoy a fine cup of coffee. One of the beauties of this is you can make it the night before, and then in the morning, just heat it up. You don't have to wait all that time for it to perk. And it'll still be just as good and just as fresh as it was when you took it off, when you first made it today. You can even leave it on the stove, you know, turn the heat off, of course, set it off, or put it in the refrigerator. Then tomorrow, heat it up in a microwave or whatever. It's just as good as when you first made it. Now, if you leave it on the stove, on low heat, to try to keep it warm for a long period of time throughout the day, naturally, you're cooking off a lot of the steam, a lot of the moisture is leaving, a lot of the water is leaving. And it just gets stronger and stronger and stronger, but only because you're boiling away or cooking away the water, not because it's getting old. So if you just add back how much water you've lost, it'll still taste the same. You can keep it for, I don't know how long you could keep it. We've kept it for up to 2 days, but after that it's gone. But you put it in the refrigerator, take it out as a cup, stick it in the microwave, heat it up, you got fresh coffee. You don't waste any, because it stays good, stays fresh. It don't get old, it don't get stale. What you have right now, it'll be the same thing that you got in the morning. Now, I will show you one other little thing that I like to do. It's absolutely not necessary, but I like to do it anyway. I will take this pot of coffee, and I will, at home, I've got another pot, and so I'll put a strainer on top, and I will slowly pour the coffee out of this pot in through the strainer into the other pot, to catch any ground that may be floating around up in there, which is seldom ever happens. But anyway, I go ahead and run it through the strainer. Then put that pot on the stove to keep it warm, and you're not, while it's staying warm, you're not stirring up that bottom at all. But if you've got a heat source on the bottom of it and still got the grounds in it, that's moving the grounds and that sludge type stuff around on the bottom a little bit, which is not the best thing you could do. So if you get the grounds out of it and the sludge, now you've just got pure coffee. You can boil it, slop your pot around, do whatever you want to. You're not going to get any grounds stirred up in it. But that's just something I like to do. I strain it out of here into another pot and put that on the stove and clean this pot up. So I use a 2-pot system, but you don't have to do that at all. It's just, when you pour it, just be careful and slow, pour it slowly. And when you get right down to the very last, don't try to get that last 2 or 3 spoons full of coffee out of it, because you're going to just get mostly sludge and grounds and stuff. So if you make 10 cups coffee, you're probably going to get a good 9.5 cups out of it without picking up all the sludge. As long as you don't slosh it around, stir up those grounds, or if you put it back on too much heat, that boiling will bring it back up, the grounds back up into the water column. Then you got to give it time to settle back down to the bottom. So, and if somebody's not used to it, they'll pick up the pot real quick and they might stir it up. So at home, just for convenience sake, it only takes me a second or two. I just pour the coffee out of this pot through the strainer into another and put that one on the stove. But you don't have to do that. This is good coffee. Make you some, enjoy it. And I'll tell you something else. It doesn't seem to make any difference which brand coffee you use. You can get the most expensive coffee, the most expensive grounds, or the cheapest. When you boil it out like this, it all virtually tastes the same. It's just good coffee. Where if you percolate it, if you run through a percolator, or you go get a Keurig or something, every coffee tastes dramatically different. It won't do that this way. The cheaper coffees are as good as the most expensive coffee when made the cowboy way. Just boil it till you boil out the bitters out of it, you boil the acids out of it, let it settle to the bottom, and then just slowly pour it off without stirring up the grounds. That's the secret to it. It'll stay good, it'll stay fresh. And if you're going to reheat it for heaven's sake, I would pour it off in something and rinse those grounds out and get rid of that and reheat it without boiling it again with the grounds in it. Or if you do, you're just going to have to let it settle again. But all I can say is it's good coffee. It's the cheapest way I've found to make coffee. There's no waste. It keeps for days. And you just don't get any better. Because it's smooth, not bitter. You adjust how many grounds you put in it to get it weaker or stronger than 2/3 cups of grounds per 10 cups of water. Put a little, maybe put say a quarter. If you want it weaker, put a quarter of a cup. If you want it stronger, put a half a cup. Vary it yourself. I would not suggest just boiling it longer and longer and try to make it stronger and stronger. It's just not as good as if you boil it for a shorter period of time. You want to boil it for just enough time to boil out the acids and the bitters. That's all you really want to do. Enjoy your coffee. Now, if I were at home, what I would do is I would pour this pot of coffee, fresh made coffee, through a strainer into another pot. But I don't have another pot out here in the camp, so I'm going to go ahead and pour the coffee through this strainer into a plastic container that I happen to have. And I'm going to pour it kind of slow, so I don't want to stir all the grounds up. Even though this strainer would catch most of them if I did. You're not just stirring up the grounds, you're just stirring up that, what I call sludgy looking stuff in the bottom. When you get down to this point here, don't try to be too stingy. Get all the coffee you can, but as you can see, there's almost no grounds on there. There's 2 or 3. Almost no grounds on here. Now, I will go over and just rinse this pot out and then pour that coffee back into it. Well, I've now rinsed out my coffee pot, got it nice and clean, got the grounds out of there. So I'm just going to pour the coffee back in it. Now you can do whatever you want to. You can set it on the stove or anything you want to. You don't have to worry about being so careful about stirring up the grounds in it, because there aren't any. There's no grounds in it to stir up, so I'll go ahead and me another cup. Then just set it aside and let it get good and cool. Now, we'll have me another cup of this good Cowboy Coffee. Do yourself a favor and try making it this way, because you're going to like it. It really is good coffee. You can make good coffee that you can keep for a few days. It don't get strong, it don't get bitter. And it's the cheapest way that I've ever found to make coffee. It's better than anything I ever got off of a Keurig or something like that. And at a fraction of the cost. It's just plain good. It's made like coffee that was made ages ago, and people just kind of lost the art. It's nothing new. It's an old way of making coffee. A lost art, a lost way of making coffee. But I'm telling you, it's a good way to go. It's the least expensive and the best tasting coffee you can get. What do you got to lose? Give it a whirl. I'll give you a little side note why I took this particular time to make this video. I was getting, like I said, I was going to go out and muzzleloader hunt a while, but when we came in last night, I left my rifle and powder horn and shot bag and everything in Jack's truck. While I was pedaling around camp here, he jumped in his truck and he went off to hunt somewhere, never realizing he forgot that my gun was in there. So Pierce and Jack are out hunting. I got nothing to hunt with. So I'm sitting here making coffee. And I might be the lucky one. Oh, goodness. Talk soon. I've just been sitting here enjoying the coffee, waiting on my gun to come home. I believe it just is. Jack's driving in. There he comes. Well, Jack got back to camp with my rifle. So see, I've actually got a gun here now. So I'm gonna go up and hunt a little bit.